Thank you for attending Tips on Protesting Your Property Taxes. Jennifer Hernandez, Legacy Mutual Mortgage. Thank you for attending today. So just a quick note about me. Been a loan officer now for this is my 26th year. We've helped over 4,100 families either buy or refinance residential mortgage. So I'm super proud of that. Currently have a team of 8 that help me with clients. So just super passionate about this business. So I starting to do more webinars, and I've got a growing YouTube channel that I just want to show y'all. I am going to post this there as well, but I've also got on Loan with Jen on YouTube, I've got lots of videos for people buying, refinancing, possibly selling. I release 2 videos a week. So if you have a topic, send it to me and I'll make a video about it. So it's been kind of a labor of love for the last year, year and a half. So super excited about that, to be able to educate people to make the best decision for them. Quick disclaimer that I am not an appraisal expert. This is just accumulation of data from seminars I've attended, appraisers that I've hung out with. We actually had an appraiser perform one of these a few years ago. We took copious notes. You know, things do change, but the goal of this, probably an hour webinar with some questions, is going to be to just give you vocabulary and let you be informed on what to do, because the county doesn't give you a tutorial on how to do it. So the appraiser that we took notes from here in Houston used to work for the Harris County Appraisal District. So he has kind of some backdoor information that he shared. So I've accumulated that in some of this information. Hopefully you find helpful. And again, we're going to send this out so that people have the slides as well, so that you can revisit some of the information. I'm glad you joined today so that you can ask questions. Okay, so what you're going to learn today is we're going to go over how to complete the form. We're going to give you some tips on things to consider prior to protesting, just thinking, you know, is it worth it? Is it not? Should I protest? And then reasons for protesting. That's the main crux. That's the main part of this is, do you have a leg to stand on? And you've got to go in with a succinct message. And so I'm going to go over some tips on that. I remember Rodney years ago telling us, if you say that you're going to protest for condition, stick to condition. If you try to throw all these other things in there, it's going to go nowhere. So we've got some secret messages about that. I don't want to say secret, but the county doesn't announce them anywhere. I guess I'll tell you that. So we're going to go over some of those things. Okay. So first, I want to review how to access your account online. Some of you might be seasoned homeowners. Some of you might just be owning the house for the first time this year. So I want to just go over that on my YouTube channel. I also do have, we did a webinar a few weeks ago on filing your homestead exemption, which is the exemption that you get if it's your homestead. So anybody can protest. You don't have to have a homestead exemption. You don't have to have any exemption. Anyone can protest. And protesting happens every single year. So keep in mind, you may have never protested before and you've lived there for many years, or you might protest every year. And you don't have to protest, but the county gives you that right. And so that's what we're talking about today. But I just want to revisit how to access your account online and where you can get some good information. Now, I'm going to be using Harris County's website. It is by far the most friendly. Some of the other counties, you have to just scroll around and know what to look for. You just have to kind of train yourself. There's several other counties in the Houston area. There's Montgomery, there's Fort Bend. They're all, you know, I live in Fort Bend. They're all just a little bit different. So we're going to go through right now just Harris County, because it's just, like I said, it's the most simple to teach on. So you go to your county appraisal district website, whatever that is. So if it's Harris County, you just Google Harris County Appraisal District. If you're Montgomery, Montgomery County Appraisal District, okay? Find the property search button, okay? So that's the arrow to the left. somewhere they're going to say, search for your property. Okay, so you're going to do that. And then you're going to search by address. That's the simplest way to do it. The account number is a 15-digit number that no one would memorize, so I don't recommend that really. Owner name, you could do that, but you might have changed your owner name to owner of record. You might not have your name online. That's a privacy issue. Actually, you can do that. You can turn something into the county and say that you don't want your name to show. You want it to say owner of record. So that's just a little free tip for you to not have your name in public record. So I would just search by the address. Okay. Now, searching for the address is a little finicky because if you have like a street or a circle or something else, it's entered sometimes here differently. Sometimes it's CR, sometimes it's CIR. So I would just put the street number and then the street name and try to find it that way. But you might have to try, sometimes I have to try a couple times. If it doesn't come up and you know that that's your county, obviously you're just inputting your street name wrong. So maybe don't spell out circle and just abbreviate it, or just put Maine, for example. So just, just a little tip on that. So you're going to find your address. And this is what a sample in Harris County looks like. Now, again, every county is a little bit different, but your thing is going to come up, your record. Okay. Now, Harris County is really good in that they, you can really have several hyperlinks to go to other things. So for example, this is where you're going to check to make sure that you have whatever exemptions you might have. You might have an over 65, you might be homestead exemption. If you don't have any, and this is not any of those, it's going to say none. So you just have to file one time. And this is important, and it is related to protesting your property taxes, because exemptions are what reduce your overall tax. So the county comes up with values, and then you have opportunity to protest all throughout the next couple months. Okay. And the hearings are in the summer. And then the values are set in stone after the summer, because I don't think they take any hearings until after July. And then November-ish is when all of the tax bills are released. So any corrections to like your exemptions and stuff, you have to do that now. So make sure, and once you've got homestead on there, it's not going to change until you claim homestead somewhere else. Okay. But it's a good idea just to check, because, there's error. Things might have fallen off. You might have, a spouse might have deceased and your exemptions might have fallen off because of that. I did have that happen to a client one time. So it's always a good idea every year or more often to come in and just check your record, okay, to make sure. Now, to the right, you can click and get to your tax bill, but what we're here to talk about are values. So down in the bottom, it shows the value in 19, and then it shows the value in 20. Now, values are just now coming out in 2021, and they're not published yet. You will not see that on here because it's an opportunity to protest, which is what we're talking about. So the values that you're protesting are the values in 2021, this year. So last year is said and done. You've already been billed for that. But I wanted to point out to you where the information is. And if you're a new homeowner and it's your first time, you're likely going to be higher than what the seller was. So that's something important to note, because this information is going to help you later on to understand something else that I'm going to talk about. And because you've got a cap every year of what you can pay. But the very first year that you live in the house as of January 1, you have the opportunity to file your homestead exemption if that applies to you. And the county, very conveniently for them, can catch up your value to the market. So the value has been possibly capped or frozen if it's over 65, or not frozen, but capped in the past. And then here comes a new homeowner, and bam, maybe the seller was paying let's take this as an example. Maybe the seller was paying $297 and then you bought it for $350. Well, guess what? It's very likely that they're going to bring it up to $350. So just FYI, that cap does not apply to the year that you didn't own the house as of January 1. January 1 is the key trigger word here. So I thought it was worth mentioning before we go into this, some definitions, okay? So remember, if there's any questions, you've got the little chat or Q&A button at the bottom. All right, now we're going back to the protesting, okay? So you're gonna get a form in the mail. It is always in the physical mail. So if you refinanced or financed recently, you're getting lots of junk mail. Anything from the county appraisal district in the county that you live in, you want to open it. They normally put it on colored paper. I don't know. This year they didn't, though, for me, because I don't know, maybe they're saving money on paper. I don't know, but it might be on white paper and it might be on green paper. It could be either of those. But it's going to say Harris County Appraisal District. It's going to look pretty official. And then it's going to have your account, property description, and county account number on there. So you can double verify that that's correct, because you can log in online and verify your, 13, I think it's a 13 or 15 digit number. It's large. Okay. Now, this is where they're saying, this is what we estimate your value to be. Now, there's a difference between the market value and the appraised value. The market value is the value that is the market that's happening in your area. That's just the market. You pay tax on the appraised value. So in this example for this person, the market value, and I'm looking in the middle of the page where the arrow is, the market value is $369. But the appraised value is $354, which, without knowing much about this property, I can tell they probably have a cap, which we're going to go through what that means. Because when you live in the property as your primary residence and you claim homestead, your value cannot go up more than 10% per year, your appraised value. Okay. So they'll give you further instruction in this letter, so make sure you read every word. Now in Harris County, it's directing you to iFile, and that's going to be important. Not every county does this. So again, this seminar would be way too long if I included every single county. So you need to know what to look for if this applies to you or not. But you always have a certain amount of time. Now, in this Harris County notice, it says, if you look in the paragraph below the red arrow, you have until May 17th to file, or 30 days after the letter was mailed. So you want to see the date of the letter at the top. Whichever, and it says whichever is later. Okay, so this letter was dated 3/31, which would mean the deadline would be filed by 4/30. Well, the 17th is later, so it's giving you till the 17th. Okay, but let's say they were behind and they didn't mail the letter until, you have to look at the date of the letter. What if the letter was dated on April 20th and you haven't gotten yours yet? You would have until May 20th to protest. So make sure you keep all these documents, okay? All right, so this is the official document. Now, Harris County is trying to force people to file online. I was able to do that with Fort Bend County last year as well, where they want to get you to do it online, upload anything that you can at the time of the protest, which means you've got to be organized. Don't wait till the night of the 16th like I did last year. Okay, I was like, oh yeah, I got to file my protest. And then I was scrambling to upload information and I didn't have it. So that was, and I do this all the time. So like, I didn't even knew what I was doing. So I really didn't. So don't do that. So be prepared. Start now when you get the letter, if you're going to accumulate the information, which is the purpose of this webinar, is to help you know what to look for. So that's just a couple of things. So I file is a very popular way. The county wants to cut down on, they really don't want to see you in person. They really don't, even before COVID. They want to do as much as they can electronically. It's more efficient for everybody. But you also have the opportunity, which we will go over, to have a hearing in person. Okay, so this is the start of that. So you get the notice and then you need to file. So these are the couple of the steps I'm going to go over, and then I'm going to show you what the protest form looks like. So number one, you have to complete the protest. You're going to receive, like we talked about, the letter in the mail. It's always going to be a letter, by the way, never an email. You're going to follow the instructions. I put here deadline 5/15, but it's 5/17. You're going to mail in. If you do mail it in and you don't do it iFile, you want to mail it in, I suggest that you do it certified so you have the date stamp, and make sure you keep all your receipts, okay? Or you can iFile if your county, for example, Harris will allow it, or Fort Bend or whatever. Now, the iFile is really considered the informal hearing. We're going to go over in a little bit informal versus formal, but they want to try to settle with you that way, okay? Step two, so you're going to do this little filing thing, and then they're going to send you, probably, if you do it online, they're going to send you an email confirmation. If you do it in the mail, you're going to wait for your notice of appointment. So you're going to fill out the form. If you do it that way, they'll mail you back when your appointment is. I don't suggest that you reschedule it, because you really have a short window. They really do in-person hearings, usually in June and July. I'm not sure what's happening with, COVID and stuff. I don't know. So, you just have to follow whatever instructions are sent to you. Okay. Now, step three is really simultaneous. Once you protest, then they make available to you information to use in the protest. So the information isn't available until you say, yes, I want to protest. If you do it in the mail, they're going to go to your electronic online filing, and they're going to create a link for you to be able to access that stuff online in your account. They're going to send you something, is what I believe is what they do. And again, they might change the way they do things. So I'm just trying to provide guidance here. It's not set in stone. So just follow instructions of whatever you receive in the mail, but they have to make available to you after you say, I want to protest. They make available to you the market data and the comps, the comparables that they used. Okay. So that's really what we're going to that's what we're going to be going through, is how to do all that. Let's see if I have any questions here. Nope, not yet. Okay. All right. This is the actual form. So when you fill it out, and it'll be similar online, okay, similar questions. You're going to fill the form out, and what's really important, and we're going to go over the 4 main reasons of protesting. So when you protest, don't just make this stuff up. Like, you've got to really know why you're protesting, and you can choose more than one. But I'm going to shortcut for you and let you know that, and I'll repeat it later, that when you're in the hearing, or when you're submitting this documentation online, if you do the iFile, if you say that you're protesting because of condition, you have to stick to that as your argument. So if you later get to a hearing because you don't like their response of let's say they say no, and you say, okay, I want an in-person hearing, you can't go in and then automatically protest for square footage inaccuracy. You can't go from condition to square footage if you didn't claim that in the very beginning. So be careful that you really know the reasons that you're protesting, and you have to stick to that. I will just save you a trip to the county. They will flat out deny you, and you will leave there with your head spinning like, what just happened? So it's just a waste of time, because they will stick to exactly the reason that you protested, and you can't go any further in anything else. It just won't happen. So it's super, super important. And again, this is the form if you do it, you know, mailing it in. Okay. Let's see, we do have a question, I think. Very good question. Can you protest more than one thing? Yes, you can. You can protest for more than one thing. And the county, I mean, remember, the county really does rely on people to make corrections. There's incorrect square footage all the time. All the time. We see it when things change hands and people buy and sell property. The sellers, of course, don't always raise their hand to correct square footage, especially if it's really lower online than it is in reality. But at some point, we have to say, hey, this is, you know, room count and all that. I mean, we got to really think about if we're trying to avoid certain things, it's going to come up later on. I can guarantee it when you're trying to sell the property or whatever. But they rely on the people to help correct the data. So that's something to remember, that when houses are built, they rely on the exterior area of a house. They don't go inside. People don't just let the county in to measure their house. So they don't really know the accurate square footage. But I'll go over that when we do the gross living area in a little bit. So a couple of things to consider before you protest, before you say, okay, am I going to do this? Now, I think it's a good idea to protest every year. I really do. But you just I want you to know what you're getting into and what you're not getting into. So the market value that they're giving you is determined as of January 1 this year. So it's not as of today. It's not as of a year ago. And we're still definitely not talking about Harvey. Like, you can't pull years ago information into it. So it's on January 1, what that value was determined to be. Now, it's very difficult right now because we're in a major increasing value market. So it's very difficult. If the values are going down, which I personally saw that happen during Harvey, some areas just the county just did like a blanket reduction for a lot of people, which was good. Sometimes when values are going down, they won't really, you've got to really look online. If you haven't gotten a notice yet in the mail, they should always give it to you, but sometimes they don't for some reason. I don't know why. So you always want to kind of look online, especially if you haven't received the notice of protest yet, and to make sure you didn't accidentally throw it away. Okay. So I do have another question about this that I'm going to answer. It says, are there definitions that they use to describe the building condition? Yes. So we'll get into that. That's a very good question. We are going to go through because we're going to go through those 4 properties. I'm just doing definitions at this point. So you pay taxes. One thing to remember, your taxes are based on the appraised value, not the market value. Okay. And then homestead properties have a capped value, homestead. And then if you're over 65, you're claiming it as your homestead as well. So this is what capped means. This is the definition on the Harris County site, that it's really a 10% cap every year. So if one year your house is valued at 100,000, it can't go up more than 10%, which is 10,000. So that couldn't be more than 110 the next year. Even if the market around you is higher, which was in the case of the example we saw on the protest form, that person, their house or market around them was 369, but they're paying tax on 354 because they're capped. That's why. Okay. So that's a benefit of homestead exemption. Okay. So there's a definition here that helps you with that. And, you know, there's FAQ links on the website of wherever you go to, whatever county that you're in. And every county really, the culture of every county is very different. You know, when I moved counties several years ago, I noticed a very different process from when I used to live in Harris County. but this is just a good baseline for me to give you, which is the purpose. But again, I don't do this professionally as a protester. I'm just here to give you information that I've gathered over time. So 4 common reasons to protest. And when I say only use these, it's like, these are the main ones, and unless you're doing something like correcting a name or correcting a homestead exemption or whatever, but you've got to get that in pretty quickly because you have a window for that, which is about to close at the end of this month. So all of you should go online and make sure that your exemptions for this month, for this year, well, for this year's show, unless you haven't filed for it yet. All right, so the common ones are market, which is sales, equity, which is your house unequal? Is it equivocable to other houses? Like, hey, these comparables that you used, my house is nothing like those. That's what equitable in this statement means. Equity, the equity of the house, equivocable to another house. The condition of the house, and mind you, condition you can only use 1 year. You can't say condition. They assume that you're going to fix stuff. So you can't use condition more than once in a row. You can't use that next year. Or if you used it last year, you can't use it this year. And then square footage, gross living area. Okay, which we touched on that just a little bit. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper into all of these areas. Okay. Okay, so again, you're going to get information once you file the protest. They're going to give you data, and they're going to give you a couple of forms that I'm going to tell you here what to look for. And you've got to use the data that they're giving you. I want to warn you, because I've done it myself, and I got slammed I literally, like, it was not nice. They were like, no. And I was in the hearing. I went to the formal because I didn't like what the first guy told me. They tried to solve it through the appraiser, like face-to-face sit down, and, they want to solve it there. And I said, no. And I went to the formal, and I said it nicely. I said, no, I, want to go to the board. So I did, and I deviated because I didn't have this class at that time. And I pulled up some comparables that were not on their list. And they pulled up Google Earth, and I'm like, my head was like spinning. Okay. And they had exactly, they go, nope, we didn't use that because that house was foreclosed on or whatever. I was like, oh, okay. So really stick to, you want to try to diminish the houses that they have on there. Okay. So that's when you're putting your whole rebuttal together. That's what you want to use for the data. So they're going to give you this form that's called a CMA, comparative market analysis. And these are properties that sold prior to January 1. They basically sold in 2020. Okay, so that's what they're using. So a couple of things that I want you to keep in mind as you're analyzing this data is that the district uses a mass appraisal model, meaning 1 equals all. It's kind of like on a street or on a neighborhood or houses that are similar, it applies to everybody. Okay. They have to. It's just a ginormous task. Now, the other thing is, again, they're using homes that sold prior to January 1. So this form that you're going to get from them tells you when the house is sold. It's got columns of data on it. And when you look at the form, find the ones that are the most similar to yours in room count and all that. I would look up photos of the home. And this is where you want to, do, and your realtor could help you as well. That helped you. Realtors, I know for a fact, they want you to call them. They want to be valuable to you because they, of course, want to help you again when you need to move. So call your realtor and have them help you make sense of this. So this is the section where you want to go, and you can go to hard.com and probably get access to all of these properties that sold, even though they're not on the market anymore, and look up pictures of the condition. Maybe one or two of them was in horrible condition and yours is not. Yours is in great condition. So when someone asked me about the condition, yes, the condition of the property is on there, but it's not always accurate. They're not going in all of these properties. And I can tell you that they're definitely not looking them up on the MLS. So they only know what's in the data that they've got. So they know when someone protested last year based on condition or whatever, they have all that data, but they're not doing an in-person appraisal. So it's very difficult for them to be accurate on condition. So that's where you could make a case for it, possibly on the condition, and looking up photos of these homes internally that were taken snippety snip when the realtors were putting it online to sell it. You just have to make sure you're not using pictures from 4 years ago and you're saying that, oh, this is the value right now. What if the value changed? The value could have gotten better. The condition could have gotten better. So you're looking for pictures, again, that are going to disqualify the condition of the property. Now, he did say, I suggest that you don't use other comps, but I remember Rodney, the one that helped us with this, said if you do use your own comps, that proximity is super important. Don't use things that are super far away. You have to really make a case for it. So this is where, the average person doesn't really know all of these things. That's where a realtor can super help you, okay? Don't cross into other developments, other neighborhoods. That's dangerous because they'll probably squash you for that. Order of importance is proximity and square footage. Those are the two most important factors when you're looking at the comparables. Age of the comps, if you're protesting for 2021 taxes, you want to use comparables that are in the most recent year. Also houses that, you can make a case for it. I know that for me, they were comparing my house, which is 15 years old, to some new construction. I did not win that battle. The county that I live in is just, I don't know, it was less forgiving than I found the Harris County to be, but not that I'm saying you're going to win or lose. I'm just saying that the methods of every county are very, very different. So don't use pending sales. So you can't you wouldn't want to throw this year's information in there anyway, because you would definitely lose. Values are increasing right now. So this year is a very difficult year to protest. You don't want to use any current data at all because stuff is going up. So we're just using sold data prior to January 1, okay? Okay, so that's the market analysis. Now here, and I know it's blurry, but I was just trying to kind of show you what it looks like. Like this is where houses, again, when you're doing the market, if you're doing the sales analysis, and then you're also doing the equity, my house is unequal analysis, they kind of go hand in hand. So you want to make sure to check both of those boxes if you're going to use both of those reasons for your ammunition on this. So there's a comparative property analysis that is used that they're going to give you. So they're going to give you the market analysis of the sales, and the property analysis is going to be a little bit different with some different data. Typically it has 9 houses on it. At least that's in Harris County is what Rodney told us. You want to, just a trick for you, is you want to look at the median adjusted value per square foot. So I've got that there in my first bullet here, is that, remember, all equals 1. So you want to really call them on that and say, hey, my price per square foot that you're using is higher than the median. So if you what I remember Rodney saying is, hey, if your argument's falling apart, just compare yourself to the median. And because if you're higher, let's say the median price per square foot is 120 and they're doing yours at 140, compare yourself to the masses, use their own trick of all equals one. And you might get somewhere with that. In this equity, my house is unequal, because you're using all these houses that are all equals one is their own game. So maybe if your price per square foot is higher than the masses, that's an argument you might, you might be able to use. So there might be things that you don't know about or they don't know about houses. And that's why the research on the MLS could be helpful, having a realtor help you and looking at these pictures and the comments in some of these houses. And again, it would have to have sold last year. You want to look up the houses that they sell, that they say sold last year, and you want to read those comments. Okay. Realtors are known for making everything sound beautiful. Okay. So, I mean, that's their job. They're salespeople, like, oh, stunning corner lot, blah, blah, blah. So you want to read the comments. Maybe you can find something in there, and you want to look at the pictures. They take pictures to show everything. So you want to look at that in case you can find anything. Be careful. I remember Rodney saying to be careful about building your case on one comp that's unequal, because you probably won't get anywhere. You want to try to find 2 or 3. So in that research, you want to find, again, at least a couple that are not equal, okay, to yours. So there is another question. Can you disclose actual sales price to protest market or equity? Yeah, so your property, that's one, I think this is what you mean. Yes, they want you to disclose the sales price because they don't have time to go to MLS and see what everything's sold for. But if it's your first year to protest and you bought the house last year, I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you bought the house for $300 and they're raising your value to $325. And you're like, hey, here's my closing statement. Last year before January 1, I bought the house for $300,000. So yeah, I would do that for sure. I would definitely do that. I think that's what you meant. And if it's not, chat me back. So hang on. You built your house. Okay, so here's more to that. This person built their house and they valued it roughly 20% higher than what you paid. So that's where, if you built the house, yes, I would go in, and if you bought it last year, I would show your settlement statement for sure, because the county is using the opportunity when they know that a sale has happened. That's all they know. They know that a trigger in the property records has happened. They get all the deeds of trust, all the public record whenever things are filed, whether you pay cash or finance, they know about it because there's a warranty deed that passes through the county. So they get all those lists, and that's what all their staff is paid to do. They go through and scour, and they're digging, and they don't know what it's sold for. They're just saying, hey, we're going to catch it up to what we think the market value is on January 1. So use your settlement statement and prove that point. It should work. I know that when I did that on a house, and it was a long time ago, it was about 15 years ago, on a house that I bought, I used that same argument. So, I mean, it should still be able to happen. So one more comment, and then we're going to go to reason number 3. This person bought a house in 2019. They used a service to protest last year that they say didn't do anything for them, and now they're trying to bring it down to earth. Yeah, that's a good idea. I think that protest companies they're good and they serve a purpose, but also no one's going to know your house like you are. So you're going to give it a lot more fortitude than somebody that just doesn't know you. You're just a name on paper, and they don't even come and look at your house. Like, they just do everything on paper, but they do serve a purpose. I mean, there are people that have success with it, but I'm sorry that you didn't. But definitely, yes, I'm hoping you can use this information and get somewhere with it. But if whatever they valued you at in 2020, so for this person that bought in 2019, they should have filed, I'm just going to assume that they filed a homestead exemption in 2020. And 2020 is the year, last year, that established their baseline year. So whatever the value was in 2020, their first year having lived there as of the first of the year with that homestead exemption, they can't increase your appraised value more than 10%, as long as you have that homestead exemption on there. So that's a really important thing to just look at for whoever answered that question or asked that question, okay? So if someone is using their own documents to protest, should they choose market, sales, and equity as the reasons? I would use market, sales as the reason, because equitable, is your house equitable to the masses? I mean, you'd have to go in and prove that. I mean, if you're just using that one thing, I would just use the market to protest. Another question, I knew this would be a hot topic. This one is usually has a lot of questions. So if someone is using, another question, if someone is using their own sale documents, okay, that's the same question. Using their own sale documents to protest. So yes, you use that and it's market. That's the market sales approach reason. So we're going to move from reason number 2 and we're going to go to reason number 3, which is condition. And apparently, from what Rodney, my ex-HCAT appraiser friend, told me, he said, this is the easiest to win. Condition is condition. You know, you snap pictures, and I mean, how can you protest condition? It's as it is, right? So this is an exaggerated picture, but this stuff happens. So especially if you've been through, you know, if you still have exposed pipes from all the freezing that we had. Now, again, a warning, if your house is still, if you've used condition in the past, you're not going to probably get that condition again. They assume that you are going to get stuff fixed. They're not going to let you get away with it more than once. Okay. Very difficult on recent construction is what he said. It's more likely on older homes. You've got to provide proof. You've got to do pictures. Try to date stamp them if you can. I guess you can do that in your iPhone. You know, examples are foundation. You know, foundation moves all the time. You could definitely use that as a reason. Things might have flooded, a roof, there might have been a hailstorm, etc. That could be a very good reason. Get a bid from a contractor. I just warn you, that's going to be really hard. But if you've already gotten one, of course, if you are going to get someone to professionally help you with your house, get them to give you a bid of how much that stuff is going to cost to fix. Needs to be logical. So if your home's valued at 200 and the repairs are for 75, a red flag is going to go up. Like, they're going to be like, seriously? Like, you know, that you're going to only get so much value with this. Okay. Is the property livable? This is what I remember in my notes. This is what Rodney said. He goes, if it just sounds too fluffy, they're going to question your integrity and they're just not even going to pay attention to you. They're going to be like, forget it. So just, you know, make sure you have a solid argument in there. And again, I talked about once you use condition, they're only going to do it for a year and they're going to assume that you're going to fix it. Okay. So I put that on there to remind you when you're revisiting these slides after we send them to you. Okay. Okay. Going to the next slide. Okay. So the last one, the fourth reason that I chose to go over is square footage. So gross living area. I have used that twice in 2 years in a row, and my county just doesn't care. They're like, no, basically. So, you know, it wasn't that far off, but I had to get some plans. I even had an appraiser remeasure. Sometimes I'm just going to tell you, you have a solid argument, and I went right to the board. Last year, we took an appraiser with us. that we paid to come with us, and it just didn't work. So, again, I don't want to tell you not to do the one in person, but I just want to warn you, you got to have your ducks in a row. And the year that we didn't take an appraiser with us, the board said, because I'll tell you in a minute what to expect when you go to the board. It was like 3 or 4 people. So it's a little intimidating because there's a bunch of people in the room. And my husband went, and they asked him, are you a licensed appraiser? And he said, no, sir. Okay, then, they said. And so we didn't win it. And so the next year, that's when we're like, all right, then we're going to go in there with a licensed appraiser. And they just got shut down. So again, some people win the argument, some people don't. It just depends. It really just depends. You can have all the ammo in the world. So it doesn't always happen. Okay, so square footage, gross living area. Common error, I mentioned it before, but I want to just repeat, like the county is relying on you to make things accurate because they send out people to try to remeasure and try to get in your house and see things, especially when homes are built brand new. So if you have someone from the county come to your door, that's possible. They would always have a badge, but in this day and age, I mean, I can tell you, everyone is fearful to let someone in their house. I mean, you never know, right? Someone could be posing. So if some person randomly shows up at your door, are you going to really yeah, sure, come on in. Nobody does that, okay? So the way that they get your value is now they have drones. They literally take the exterior perimeter of your house and they double it if it's a 2-story. Now, let me tell you what's wrong with that. That could be a higher square footage than necessary, or that's actual, because in your house, you might have non-living area. You could have unfinished space that's not air conditioned, like a sunroom or dead space. So it's air conditioned, livable space is what they use in the square footage, or that they're supposed to. So if you see, it is good to check if you think that your square footage is too high on the HCAD. That's why. That's the reason why. So for you to make it right, you would have to hire an appraiser to remeasure and have a formal report. You're gonna have to spend $300-400 to get that done. It's just the way that it is. Now, appraisers are really swamped right now. So if you're gonna get that done, you've got to allow like 3 weeks. So, again, if you're gonna protest that and you've only got till May 15th to do it, you still have some lead time later to get your ducks in a row and your presentation together. But you just got to know that these things take time to get some of these things done. So if you yourself measure, they're not going to accept it. They're going to be like, are you a licensed appraiser? How do we know you measured correctly? Blah, blah, blah. They're not. It needs to be a professional that's doing it. Or your appraisal when you bought the house should have a drawing, because the appraisers measure when they go in. So you might be able to use that. And you got a copy of your appraisal. If you did a loan, if you paid cash, you wouldn't have that. So, again, just to repeat one of my bullet points, to be counted as square footage, supposedly it's supposed to be heated and cooled. So if there's space in your house that's not, and you think it's in the square footage, you could have an argument, but you've got to have proof. Okay. So yeah, we already went over this. So we went over square footage. It's pretty cut and dry. You've got to prove what your square footage is. Okay. So I do have one question about that. Actually, it was about the condition that we're going back to condition. What if all the homes surrounding me have new roofs and other significant improvements done last year and mine didn't? Is that a valid argument? Not really, because I don't think so, because a roof is just a regular maintenance item. So when you're talking about improvements, a roof is not an improvement. A roof is a maintenance thing to keep your house going. So when we're talking about improvements, it's where you add square footage or you add, items that enhance the value of the house. Usually exterior things, you would have had to have a permit, but then there's some people that do things without a permit. So you got to be careful. But yeah, a roof is probably not going to be too valid, but I mean, you can try, but I think it's not going to work, but you could try. It's probably not. Okay, so someone has a question on the formal hearing. Can you introduce new documentation for the formal hearing? No, you cannot. They will shoot you down. I think I did that one year before I knew all this and had someone have a class about it, because I've been protesting my houses for lots of years. And according to what Rodney, this expert, said, who used to work for the appraisal district, he said, if you introduce new info, they're going to make your head spin. No, and they're ready for anything, because they've got in the formal hearing, they have a staff appraiser, and trust me, he's at a computer, and as you're talking, he's looking stuff up, and they'll shoot on this big screen TV in front of you that's in the room. Oh, hey, well, we just pulled up Google Earth and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Like, they're ready. They are ready. So introducing new stuff, no, you can't introduce new stuff in the formal hearing and get away with it, because they're gonna stick to your regular initial argument. So someone else is asking another question about level of finishes. So some homes in my neighborhood are multi-million teardowns, and mine is often compared to that. For example, a house down the street had steel frame windows where we used black vinyl, and it was a difference of like 10 to 40K in cost. So that could be an equitable, that was reason number 2 on equity. And equity, not meaning equity like I have 20% equity. That's not what I mean. It means equitable, like my house is not the same as that house. So if your house is being compared price per square foot to newer houses, which trust me, they try to do that, then that's where you would look up pictures and say, hey, ABC Street is brand new multi-million dollar construction. My house is 20 whatever years old or whatever it is. And you can use that equitable argument in that. So that's where, when they give you the forms, after you say that you want to protest, they make accessible to you the forms with the data that they used for their argument. And then you need to go in and discount that info. So to the person that just asked that question, you want to get that report, and you want to look up all those properties that they're using for their argument, and you want to find holes to poke in it and look up those different ones. So like I said, introducing new data is dangerous. You want to use the data that they're promoting and try to poke holes in it. Okay, these are the things that, according to my contact, have the highest ability or highest probability of potentially having a success. Okay, so this person said, my house is newish, but just remodeled. The level of finishes is drastically different than others in the neighborhood. So yeah, that's where you could take pictures. And again, you've got to find pictures, because again, the county does not have access to interior houses. So snapping pictures, like when you look stuff up online, showing the MLS record number, so that they know that it was, like, pretend you're a private investigator. You have to lay it all out to them on a silver platter. Like, I think one year that I did it, I even went to Kinko's and like bound my thing in a little spiral. And so when you have data, if you go to the formal hearing, this is a good time to bring this up. When you go to the formal hearing, take with you your data and have a copy for you and a copy for them, but be prepared with an extra copy, because in the room is several people. So the more prepared you are to give the data. So we're going to go through that actually in a second. We're going to talk about just some tips on formal versus informal, because I've done it myself and also from my contact, Gabe. So what to expect? Okay, got a little Buzz Lightyear going on here. Don't be scared or nervous. I mean, it is a little intimidating, because it is nerve-wracking, okay? I mean, I'm not going to cure that for you, but I'm trying to help you with be as prepared as possible. But it's really important to know, and Rodney would really make a big point to tell us. He's like, listen, these are your peers. Like, the people on the board are usually retired people that are either retired industry people, or usually, sometimes it's not, it's usually, sometimes it's professional people, but it's volunteer. It's not, they're not paid. And they want to contribute to society, and they're on this panel. So in the room, in the formal protest, when you go to the ABR, the ARB, Appraisal Review Board, it's 3 to 4 people that are representing the county, it's usually volunteer, and they're doing it because they care. But they're your peers. And then it's a person from the appraisal district that's an appraiser, that's a staff appraiser. Okay. So that's at minimum who's in there. Okay. And then you, and I don't know if they're going to be doing them on Zoom because of COVID, probably. I just don't know. Okay. Or you're going to only be able to be you in there, not, you can't take your whole family in there for moral support. Like, it's just like you, that's it. So what he did mention, so I'm going to do informal and then I'm going to do formal. So informal, many counties are replacing informal in person with this iFile thing that I talked about in the very beginning. So they want you to try to settle online in the beginning. So remember, the deadline is May 17th. Today is April 15th. So you've only got a month to try to get this information together, because it gives you an opportunity online, if you do it online, to upload this stuff at the time. And this also saves you a trip going down to the county later. I mean, it's a pain. It's not fun. Okay. So, because you'll be there all day. Like, you have your appointment and they might be running behind, and you'll be there all day. So try to iSettle. Sometimes it's just super simple, like the person who bought it for whatever, and it's like, oh, hey, here's my settlement statement. Easy, done. But if you do get an informal meeting, I know at Harris County, they do it in person, informal meeting with a one-on-one staff appraiser, and they want to try to settle with you at that. They really don't want you to go to the appraisal review board. It takes longer for everybody. So again, stick to your argument, see if they can resolve it. If they offer you a value that you don't like, so this is important. If the iFile, if the online thing or the one-on-one appraiser, if you do the in-person, if they give you an answer that you don't like and you say, no, I don't agree with it. Maybe they gave you 30,000 and you're like, no, I want 100. Very important for you to know all bets are off. And when you go to the appraisal review board, I had one person, he's a realtor, so he totally knows what he's doing and was super prepared. They went backwards and they said, you know what? Let's say he was trying to protest 350. Let's say they came out, I'm just making up a number. Let's say they said 350 and he was trying to get it down, I don't know, to 325 or whatever he was doing. They actually went up on the price and said, you know what? No, you didn't win and we're raising it. Like, the appraisal review board has the power to do whatever. So his was actually reversed. It doesn't happen often, but it can happen based on the data that you provide. So you have to be careful, because if you provide data that further makes their case for them and you may not realize it, they could go the other way. Or they could reverse, oh yeah, it doesn't matter what we offered you online in the iFile as a counter, all bets are off. That doesn't exist anymore. So you just have to be really careful. Now, the formal hearing, and then we've got lots of questions, so I'll answer those. So the formal hearing means I don't accept the online rebuttal, whatever you told me online, yes, no, maybe, whatever, I don't accept it. And if you got to that one-on-one on the date of your appointment, if you don't agree with that person that was sitting right in front of you, then you go to the formal. And it's the same day, usually. You just have to go back into the waiting room, wait. I think when I did it, I had to wait, I don't know, a couple hours maybe. Because remember, they never know how many formal hearings they're going to have. And again, you have to stick to your reason of the original statements of your protest. You can't bring new information in. It will not work. And remember, these are not professional people. They are people just like you. So I remember that my contact would say, he said, you know, people would get huffy puffy and they were not nice trying to prove their point. And that really makes the appraiser not want to negotiate with you, and the board too. So just keep your calm and remember that they are people just like you. And so just stick to the facts, be factual, have your data, and try not to let emotion get in. It's hard because it's frustrating. I know that when we went in, or when my husband went in, he was like, oh my gosh, I was just sitting there. And they were like, are you a professional appraiser? And he's like, no. And like, you know, they can pretty much do what they like. They have the power to have your whole tax future in their hands. So you've got to really be nice to these people. Okay. And so just a little word of reminder, it's easy to get heated when you're trying to prove a point that you really super believe in, but we've got to make sure you know, just be professional at the same time. So I do have some questions, and then I'm going to talk about some resources to help. So this was about square footage. If you disclose an appraisal report to evidence proper square footage and it lists the home as higher appraised value than what you paid for the home, can they use that against you? Yes. Yeah. So you got to be careful. What you could do is hire an appraiser to come and just measure, or you can use that appraisal report and copy the first page that shows the name of the appraiser because it has a report number on it. I think that's actually what I did, that there's a report number on it. Let's say it's a 7-digit number. And then you'll go to every page has that report number on it. So then you'll go to the page that has the drawing. Let's say it's page number 9, and you'll use that page. So just make sure that it's linked together so they can see the date that was done and who did it. And then the number of the appraisal. So try that first. You don't have to provide the whole report. Hopefully that helps you. Let's see. Okay, so this is another question about the appraisal value being capped. So what if your appraisal value is capped and it's less than their market value? Can they still increase it? Yes, your appraised value is the one that's capped. The market value is the one that they're increasing. So later, and the reason that's important, and when you're protesting the actual market value, not the appraised value. So the market value, and why that's important too, is because let's say your exemptions fall off of there. Let's say that you live there now as your primary, and you buy a new primary and you're keeping this and you're retaining it for rent. That cap doesn't apply anymore, and they're going to raise it to market value. Trust me, like they're going to do that. So that's where, you know, it gets really dicey. You're really protesting the market value to keep that in check. And that affects trickle down. It affects the appraised value. So that was a good question. Let's see. I think I have another question. Can you use we're back to square footage. The person asked, can you use a floor plan? Yes, you can. You just have to make sure it's legible, because a lot of times those floor plans are very, you know, and make sure that it's accurate. So I think remeasuring is always a good idea, but yes, you could use a floor plan, like if it's from a builder or whatever. Just make sure they can tell that it's from an accurate, creditable source, and not something you just did on, you know, PDF Illustrator, just on your own. You know, you kind of see the source of where it was from. a couple more questions. So, so someone is asking that they heard that by buying a rain barrel could help with the property taxes. Is that accurate? So that's for providing water to the property, like probably like a eco, I think what you're alluding to is eco-friendly. So like solar panels and all that. I don't have information on that or knowledge about whether or not that is going to be, you'd have to check the county that you live in. And I would go to the FAQ help button, the search, and search for, what's it called? You know, eco. I think it helps you more on your income tax, but I'm not sure about property tax. So it sounds like a rain barrel or like a compost or like a, you know, solar panels, that all falls into the category. I think what you're asking is, you know, eco-friendly improvements. I don't know the answer to that. So that's something that you want to maybe look at the FAQs in your county, and there might be some information about that. That was a really good question. All of them are good questions. Okay, so a couple of resources to help you. Definitely your realtor. If you didn't use a realtor when you bought the house, you can just contact me. My contact info, by the way, is at the bottom of the screen, Loan with Jen. You just get to my website and my phone number and email are there. Just shoot us an email is really the best, if you don't mind, initially, so we can do some research before we call you back. But just email us. And if you need a recommendation or something, we can put you in touch with a realtor. There are companies that assist to do this. Someone mentioned before in the chat, O'Connor. There's other people, maybe your realtor would be willing to do something for you and help you out. So the way that these protest companies work is they only get paid if they save you money. So obviously they're motivated to save you something, because like, let's say they save you $50,000 in value and your tax rate is 2.4. So you take 50,000 times 2.4. So they save you $1,200 in property tax. So they would get half of that savings, meaning you would pay them $600. So it's only if they win something for you. So that's how they're paid. So they do a lot of work for free without any benefit. And so they've got to win something. Otherwise they wouldn't all be in business. So the other thing is appraisers. You can hire an appraiser to remeasure your home. So your realtor or your lender, me, just let me know and I can refer you to some appraisers that are reputable that, well, they're all licensed. So any appraiser really is reputable because they have to adhere to certain standards. So you could Google or get a recommendation. The cost is around $200 to $400. I don't know, in this day and age, appraisers are all just swamped. So I have no idea what they're charging, honestly, right now for this. Contractors, they're going to be the ones that give you bids and repairs. Obviously, they want the business. So get them to come out and give you something on letterhead, you know, something professional. There's also a sample site that I'm including here. So we've got an investor friend that has a tool. Now you do have to subscribe. I mean, you'll get in his email database. So there is have to, you know, give your email to get access to it. But it's a website where he's got a tool that you input, and it's got average repairs for something that you can do. It's like a schedule. It's a live moving document. It's really interesting. But again, you do have to put your personal information in there to get it. But just wanted to point you to some possible things that can help you. And that was really the purpose of this whole webinar. And I'll get you the copy of it. But I really thank everybody for coming on today. And any questions, just contact us at Loan with Jen.
Legacy Mutual Mortgage is an equal housing opportunity lender. The opinions expressed here do not reflect those of Legacy Mutual Mortgage.